Oh, great. Okay, everyone, please take your seats and we're going to get started. The live stream is officially on, so order in the house. Great. Okay. Are online?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Cool. All right, welcome back from the break. Moving on to item 9.3, performance report for the period ending 28 Feb 2025. We've got Mark DeHaast and Cheryl Gavin online, and welcome. And we've also got Ian Georgeson present, who will walk us through the report. But obviously, we have it available to us and we have had for a week. So any specific detailed questions, I think maybe those can be hopefully, followed up offline. But Ian, over to you to introduce the paper and then any questions from the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morning, everybody. So this is the second performance report for the year. This covers the 8 months through to the end of February. And I'll just give you a brief overview of what's in here. It's basically got 3 sections to it. There's the financial performance, there's our progress against the 10 priorities, and then there's activity performance, including achievement of level of service measures. So if I talk, I'm talking to the performance summary, which is page 8, page 9 of your agenda. If we look at the financials firstly, you'll see that we've got a year-to-date surplus of just over 7 million. Just want to make clear that within that is included our capital receipts, so our subsidies, DCs, etc., which are not rates-funded items, are treated as revenue. So those things, because we're recording them as revenue, they cause us to show a reasonably significant surplus at the bottom line. That's not a rates-funded surplus. When you adjust for those items, we get back the rates-funded position, revenues less costs, is pretty much zero-sum game. And within that picture, we do have some pressures. So as we've been talking to you about, I think, in the previous reports and also through annual plan, we've got quite a lot of cost pressures this year around personnel, a range of operating costs, software licensing, electricity, cleaning, security. There's a basket of things that we are experiencing this year, and we're working hard to bring those things back. They've fed through into the annual plan discussions for next year, you'll recall that, and then offsetting that, we've identified for next year a program of savings to offset the impact. But nonetheless, in the current year, we're still dealing with those pressures. And if you look at the forecasts that are reported here, they're actually showing about a $4.7 million overspend for the year. That's what the business, if you like, was telling us at the end of February. We're working hard to do better than that, and we will do better than that by the time the year end comes in. On the CapEx side of things, similarly, this was as at the end of February. We were forecasting 77 million, I think was the figure. That was as at that point in time. We review this continuously. The most recent figure is more like 71, so we're pretty confident by the time we get through to the year-end position we'll be actually under budget, and certainly we're committed to managing within the LTP envelope. If I move on to the top 10 priorities, we're reporting 55% of those are on track currently. And in terms of the level of service reporting, we've got 83% of those measures that can be measured during the year are on track or achieved. There were 5 measures that were not achieved that you've got mapped out there. Most of those are relatively minor variations: OIR responses, resource consent, turnaround times, service request closure times, some illegal waste dumping, and then there was one non-compliant drinking water read. So that's my overview. Happy to open up to questions.
Great, thank you, Ian. Councillor Coe.
Thanks, Ian. Look, I've had a query from a member of the public around staff numbers. So there was an undertaking, I think it was the long-term plan, maybe slightly prior, to have a staff cap of 436, I think it was. Can you let me know what the staff, or maybe it's a question actually for Darren, what the current staffing level is now and what's projected for the next financial year? Are we still sticking to that cap?
Sure, yep. The cap of 436 was part of the long-term plan.
Yeah.
So that stays with us. We are, if we think about the current annual plan that is coming 25-26, we've taken a number of vacancies out of, so we will be below 436. The exact number escapes me. I'm not sure if. So 15, thank you, 15 staff coming out of the 436 cap. So we are working pretty hard to maintain a working capability that fits in line with our long-term plan commitments through levels of service. We're certainly not exceeding 436.
Yeah, thanks. Because obviously staffing is a big driver of cost and financial performance. So I just wanted to check in on that. Thank you.
David Shand.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start with a question which will lead to a statement, if that's the way to do it. But the first question is, what can be done to circulate this more widely? That's the question. And my comment is that this is such a really good read. It is very informative, right from the whole 80 pages. In particular, you can read what Council is doing, where activity and work is described, rather than being, this is a heretical comment, faced with a vast raft of performance indicators. And this is just a description of what Council is doing. And if more people read it, they would have a better understanding of what Council really is doing. So that's a statement. It's a really good read, which I think informs people about what Council is doing. Then I just have one other question. I take Ian's comments on the summary on the financial issues, which is partly the reason why I thought I'd come along and participate. Some of the people were saying, what the heck are you doing here, Shan? So the answer is, that's the reason. But I just noticed, Ian, you referred to operational cost pressures, and there is I didn't see any statement of operational costs here. Maybe I missed it. I mean, it's very good on CapEx, a lot of detail here, and I like the section on capital budget management. That's very informative, and the reference to the capital program board, which I'm sure and hope is working very effectively. But on the financial statement side, I don't see any detail on the operational expenditure, which might lead to some elaboration of where the cost pressures are on that side, Ian, that's all. So that was a question comment followed by a question.
Right. Look, I think your point is fair that there is less detail in here on the operating side actually than there is on CapEx. What we've got on page 94 of the agenda is a breakdown of the P&L at a relatively aggregated level. But I accept there's not a lot of detail disclosed in here beyond some comments around what's going on below that. And it's just a question of getting the balance right around how much detail we put in here versus not, I guess. Yeah. Beg your pardon? Yeah.
Did you have any further questions, David?
Well, I might like to make a comment later, but I'll do
Yeah,
that
save
with
that for
another
debate.
question.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So on page 46 of this is in the appendix, it talks about level of service and the current level of real water loss. It says it's an annual measure, but it doesn't actually say what the outcome is, if I've read this correctly. So is that unknown, is it?
Sorry, this is page 46 of the agenda?
Yeah, in the appendix. Appendix 1.
Yeah. Right, so it says, I think you're referring to the second measure down, percentage of current real water loss. So
Yes, yes.
that's identified. The A indicates it's an annual measure, so it's something we don't measure during the year.
So when it is measured, so it is measured though?
I think Sean's
I can, yes, it's measured but reported annually.
Right.
It's an annual performance
Right.
measure that then relates to the year, but it's measured, I think monthly or quarterly. We can extract that information
Yeah,
as and when we need it.
given the conversations we are having around water, I think that would be quite a useful figure to know.
It might even be on our website, I'd have to check, but it's the sort of thing that we do regularly keep an eye on. We've got some consent conditions that relate to the river recharge that link back to water conservation, leak management, that sort of thing. So happy to have a look offline and see if we could make more use or make that information more readily available.
Yeah, thank you. Or even when we have our next conversation around water. Thank you.
You just, oh yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just bringing the councillors back to the intent of the report. This is a 8-month performance update report. So you will only see stuff that we are required to report against. You won't see anything that's annualised. You see that at the end of the year.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor Wilson.
You're just following up from David's question-answer question session. So if I'm a member of the public and I want to see this report, can I? Is there a...
It goes on the website. Yeah.
Right. So could a local media outlet, for instance, do a story about this with a link, to, so the public could see the whole thing?
Oh, I'm quite happy to answer that. Thank you, Councillor Lawson. So this, once it's been through today, it will be on the website. Anyone can see it. It also goes out in our regular Kabadi updates, but of course that's only an online portal. I'm just coming back to David Shan's comment. We need to get better at telling the story of what council does. If I reflect on a recent conversation we had with a member of public who actually attended one of my performance review committees, that was the comment that he made after speaking to us there, was that the information that we had shared with him, it would be really nice to see that in the public arena, because they can see all the good stuff that we're doing. So yeah, good point. Thank you.
And I would just say, in terms of the document itself, I think it's an excellent document. It's very readable. It's presentable. It's it's not like Pravda in the 1950s. It's a really good visual read as well.
Thank you. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Two things I just wanted to touch on. First, sorry, it's just an editorial thing. I just want to get some clarity on something. If you go to that page 46 that Jocelyn was just on with the appendices, how we perform is performance for the 4 months to the 28th of February 2025. It says that a few times through there. So I just wanted to check, is that meant to say 8 months, or it is?
It is 8 months, yes.
Okay,
sorry.
no, just over the next, just a little thing, but
Beg your pardon?
I prefer to pick it up here than have someone else make a song and dance about it. That was all. The other one is just around the NZTA funding and with regards to, or lack thereof, as such. So there's the cycle and walking away dropped down to 36% support with local road improvements, no funding at all. How significantly is that impacting our ability to achieve, shall we say, a balanced budget, shall we say? Because I'm picking that at the beginning of the long-term plan process, we thought that funding was going to be there, and it's now gone. So is it going to impact on potentially some of the capital works?
Sean's got his mic on.
So yeah, there's a couple of things going on in there. So we have, subsequent to the LTP annual plan, we have secured further funding. I'm not sure if, I think I've updated which committee, but there was some funding that was set aside that we didn't receive for resilience funding, which related to the Tihoro raising the level of the road down there and putting in those new culverts. So we've subsequently got that money back. We reapplied for that money. So this is all sort of reasonably recently. We've just been told we've got that. We did also have some funding that we requested for the road safety improvement work that was linked to the speed management plan. If you recall, the council had made a decision that we would continue with a modified program, but that council would fund the difference in terms of subsidy. And at the time, I think that was 1.8 million was the total cost. Subsequent to that, again, we reapplied and NZTA have approved their share of that money. So we've got more funding than we thought we were going to get, which is going to help with some of those capital projects. That money is not coming through until next financial year. We still didn't get as much for the shared path cycleway work and some others. And as this is bulk funding from NZTA, they allow you to spend that money over the 3-year period. So what we did, as if you recall, the last LTP, we were also short, but we continued with the same amount of work in the first 2 years on the basis that in year 3 we would go back to NZTA and ask them for more funding, because generally nationally they end up with it, nobody delivers everything they've said they're going to deliver. So there's a surplus in the last year, and last year that was last year, but the last year of the last LTP we got that money. So we left our funding in the plan, and then we reapplied and we were able to secure more funding with NZTA. So we're sort of working on that basis. It is quite dynamic with NZTA. The extra funding that we came along, and it was a bit of a sort of surprise. They said we're going to get another opportunity, and it was great that we did. So we've got that. And year on year, that is a reasonably regular occurrence. There will be funding that comes up, or you will have the ability to get into another funding stream. And I guess it's one of the things we're going to talk about later with the network plan for the cycling and walking. If you've got a really robust asset management plan or a really robust network plan, it is so much easier to tap into that funding because you can link it to a strategic document or a plan that you have in it. And NZTA, if you can tick the boxes in terms of that, that makes life a lot easier in terms of securing funding. So in answer to the question, yes, we didn't get as much. We've got some more, but there's still some more work to do over the next 2 years before we lock out year 3.
Thank you for that. Actually, yeah, that jogs my memory. A similar conversation, I think, a few years back, similar sort of thing. So I just, thank you for capitalising opportunities that are available to get that funding. So no, much appreciated. Thank you very much. Other than that, I agree with everyone else. It's very easy. When I say easy read, it was a comfortable read. And, I felt engaged and informed, and it wasn't hard work, which was fantastic. Appreciate we're still evolving, but like Cricket Charlie, it's coming a long way real fast.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Halliday. Just to add to that, I really loved the little "did you know" bubbles that we've got on each of the under each of the services. Like, for example, our 11 community venues have been hired out for a total of 12,852 hours so far this financial year, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, thanks for kind of bringing some of those highlights to the fore as well, alongside all of the financials. So not seeing any. Oh, David Shand.
Just one last question, stroke comment. And this refers to Mana Whenua representatives. What can be done to improve the attendance and participation of Mana Whenua? This is a real issue, I think. So that's my general question, which I guess is directed to the Chief Executive and or the Mayor, if she were here, in her absence, the Deputy Mayor. But it is a real matter of concern. Today we have 3 people who are not here, who are listed on the agenda. We still don't have anyone who attends who is nominated as a member of the Risk and Assurance Committee. Now, where are we going to go? Where are we going on this participation? I happen to be, some of you probably don't know this, I happen to be a kaumātua of a far south iwi, and I vote on the Maori roll. I'm going to be restricted in my ward voting to the Maori ward. So it means Nigel, Jocelyn, you don't even have to be nice to me because I can't vote for you. Anyway, in fact, but those of you who are running at large do have to be nice to me, right? So that's the difference. So, but this is a real problem. This is a real problem. I'm restricted in a sense by the adoption of a Maori ward, which I support. But look, this is we've had this discussion before, but it's not good enough, all right? And it needs to be pursued, and I hope it will be pursued. I know it's sensitive, and you tread on eggshells, particularly around this particular time, but it's something which really needs to be addressed because it's completely unsatisfactory as far as I'm concerned. We have no indication of any real engagement at all on the committees that I attend. Thank you.
I can comment.
Chief Executive Darren Edwards.
It's probably an officer question.
I was just going to comment on the last TWOC meeting, to be honest.
I think we'll just keep it. Yeah, that can be followed up offline though.
Thank you, Mr. Shand. I would say your iwi probably have very big feet as well, so are quite capable at standing on eggshells right across the mutu. Yes, look, it's a really good question, and I guess I'm going to hark back to a comment that Kim Tahiwi made at one of our council meetings, and that was that iwi prioritise, I guess, what is the focus for iwi at the time. Council provides a mechanism and an opportunity for our iwi mana whenua partners to have a position at this table and to have voting rights on every other committee other than council. We review that every 3 years, so that will be a conversation that will be had early in the next triennium, as we did in this triennium, noting that yep, there will be a Māori ward councillor as well in the new triennium. So I guess at an operational level, I have had a discussion with the interim GM at Atiawa, who will be starting to attend our meetings. It really comes down to prioritisation. I know with discussions with Haumare and Ngāti Toa, there is an opportunity there to raise any concerns that we have, and he takes that up with the representative. So it is a point well taken. It is for them a volunteer thing, funded to a ceiling. From council's expectation, there's an expectation that we see representation at the table. So it's a regular conversation that I am having in my discussions with the CEs at our respective runanga. There's no simple answer though, right? Everyone is time poor. I would suggest though with a Māori ward councillor that we will see the participation lifting, and there will be a conversation for this council to have in relation to representation.
Well, the first person who contacts me will get my vote.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is with regards to insurance, and I take Darren's point. This is 8 months as opposed to a full year, but I'm interested in how much insurance has cost and how much we've claimed against that cost. And I actually think make a fascinating exercise. Just have a look, say, the last 10 years, how much insurance we've paid and how much we've claimed, and if it's still a live conversation about self-insurance or a self-insurance model or a hybrid or moving towards that. I just think that in terms of improving our bottom line, that would be substantial, and presumably those kind of numbers will come up in at the end of year thing. And the other one of note is that in the last 3 years we've paid $51 million to Greater Wellington. That when I say we, it'd be the people of Kapiti have contributed that in rates to Greater Wellington. 51 million. I'm just, for the life of me, I can't quite figure out how they've spent that amount up here in Kapiti. I'm pretty sure they haven't. I'd really like to see at some stage a question going to GW to say, could you give us a breakdown on behalf of the people of Kapiti of how much you've spent up here, how much of that $51 million has come back, The people of Otaki will be particularly interested, given that they've got no real public transport to speak of. So just people ask for accountability from us, and I think this is an opportunity for us to ask for accountability from GW on behalf of the people of Kapiti. I'm sure they'll have an answer. I'm just fascinated to know what it is.
Mark, did you want to respond? I see you're unmuted.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. Yeah, look, a couple of questions there. Just regarding the insurance. So what we do tend to do is we take an annual insurance update to our Risk and Assurance Committee, which we will be doing. Look, generally our annual spend on insurance year on year is between $2.5 to $3 million. That's our whole portfolio. That's insurance on our above ground assets, below ground assets, and all the bits and bobs on our vehicle fleet, etc., etc. So why do we do an annual update to the Risk and Assurance Committee? Well, each year we renew our insurance, and each year we look at various things. So the market is definitely softening. So we were considering a self-insurance fund when we were developing the long-term plan, because the insurance market was very tight, meaning that the cost of insurance was extremely high, and there was very little capacity in the market. So we had to look at self-insurance, a self-insurance fund, as a way of actually covering ourselves and lowering our insurance costs. The market, as you'd expect, has now changed. And so what the update will be saying is that there's a lot of capacity in the market and the cost of insurance has come down. So the need for a self-insurance fund has diluted somewhat, but it's definitely still on the table. It is something that we need to take the council through and look at, because the insurance market softens and tightens all the time. It just depends on what global events happen. So there is no self-insurance fund or material self-insurance fund planned for the annual plan, and this council gave us a clear steer that it wasn't to be in the current 24-34 long-term plan, but it would be revisited as part of the next long-term plan. And at the time, the Office of the Auditor General actually gave us a big no on self-insurance funds. So it's still live. It's just not happening next year. We do need to look at that. Regards, what have you received from Greater Wellington Regional Council for the $51 million? We can take that point on board, or we can take that offline, Councillor, and SLT can discuss how we would action that. Of course, we can ask Greater Wellington Regional Council, what have our rates gone towards, and they'll reply and give us the rates and what that's been spent on. So we could do probably something in that space, but I think probably the senior leadership team needs to discuss that offline.
Yeah, I would just add it's not about trying to create work for anybody. It is a kind of a please explain to GW, but yeah, I'm not suggesting that we have to spend a lot of time and energy on it. I'm kind of making a political point as much as anything, and that they would have to come back with a response. Let them do the work. $50 million worth.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. I'm not seeing any further questions. Is there someone who would like to move the recommendations on page 36? Councillor Wilson, seconded. Councillor Halliday. Right of introduction, Councillor Wilson. Oops, sorry, Martin, could you pop your mic off? Thank you.
Oh God, I had the whole speech in my bag somewhere, but so I'll wave. It's good. Yeah, self-explain.
Cool. Could you please pop your mic off? Thank you, Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Certainly support exactly everything that Nigel Wilson said about a political platform. But no, about the comments about regional council, some accountability there would be very much appreciated, because it just seems to be a big black hole of money that goes one way and no information comes back the other. But certainly don't want that to be something that's onerous on council officers to dig out. I also just wanted to comment with regards to Mr. Shan's approach with regards to the Māori. Look, we had a Te Whakaminanga meeting this week, and I certainly don't disagree with your views in this space. But what I what I experienced at that meeting, the 5.5 years that I've been at this table, was it actually working from my perspective the way that it should. And I vocalised that at the time. It was actually great to see, reading all the information of how Te Whakamiranga is supposed to work. Pretty much I've been to every meeting since I've been elected, and I was very happy to see where that space is and where it's going. Certainly doesn't answer the question with regards to the other representation, but if that's the progression of us working through how this is going to be looking moving forward, then it's heading in the right direction. But certainly I take on your point with regards to that representational conversation as well, because it's one I brought up. So other than that, that's all I just wanted to comment on. Fantastic report, and been very interesting to see the end of the financial year one as well.
Deputy Mayor Kirby.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to comment again, reiterating what others have said, really, is the quality of the report and the readability of it, and accessibility for people. I think for me, probably the most helpful bit of the report was the initial executive summary, and then page 7 of the report, which is page 10 of our appendix, is the breakdown of costs per week for the activities per ratepayer. And when you work through that, you see pretty clearly at the 8-month stage where the cost pressures sit in terms of our operational expenses, because the majority of those are running over the 12-month budget after 8 months. And I think that information is really, really helpful for people to see. It's really helpful for me to see, and also I think for our public to go, oh, these are real. Council's not just making up the fact we've got cost pressures. These are real pressures that we're all facing. And I think what I am seeing and am encouraged by is that we are monitoring this closely and working really hard to keep our costs within our budgets, and leaning into next year that we're cutting where we can to ensure that we stay to the plan of our long-term plan, which is fantastic. And I think as a high credit to this table in terms of the questions we're asking of staff and the response, credit to staff on their response to those questions around costs and management of them. So thank you for this report. It's a great report to see.
Councillor Coe.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to pick up also on the table on page 7. So the annual plan version of that has been, I think it's already been mailed out, has it? Sent out to ratepayers. And I think this is a really clever little table that really sets out where ratepayer money goes, because I think there's still a feeling in the community, or has been, that council is like a big black sinkhole of money, and no one knows what happens to the rates money. So I think to have this reporting broken down by activity, and then for people to look through the subsequent pages and see the detail of what happens under each of those headings is a major step forward. As David said, it's about how we spread this information out there. And this is a very readable document, and I'd like to see if we can find ways to, bring it, to get a greater level of attention from the community to what's in here. I mean, ideally, we need to, I think, work towards a position where people can see perhaps even a greater level of detail of what's under each heading, and to have a mechanism for feedback to council as to what the community priorities are, so that we can take that into account, with our, annual plans and long-term plans. So, yeah, it's an excellent communication document. Let's get a lot of mileage out of it, so that we overcome that fear and anxiety that has been present in the community about, because in the absence of information, people assume the worst. They assume we are wasting money, that we're inefficient, that we're not doing things right. And I think this document is a key information piece to overcome that fear and anxiety about what happens in council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. No other contributions to debate. So with that, all those in favour? Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you, Mark, Cheryl and Ian.
Yeah.
All right, moving swiftly on to 9.4 Pathways Network Plan. So Fraser, I believe, is presenting the report alongside Sean. Awesome, welcome up. And also to note that, and this is referenced in the recommendations in front of us, that the Climate and Environment Committee have recommended that we as a committee accept the plan that's in front of us. So yeah, this is kind of like the final stage of the process, and yeah, there was quite detailed discussion at the Climate and Environment Committee meeting as well. So Sean and Fraser to introduce the paper, and noting the other staff at the table too, who I'm sure will be able to answer any questions that we have. Thanks, Sean.
Morena, thank you, Madam Chair. All I was going to say is actually has already been said. So the paper has previously was presented to the Environment Subcommittee, and there was quite a lengthy discussion over what the document was, what was in the document, and the extent of what was covered there, and so we did respond to quite a few questions there. But generally, as I mentioned before, this is the document that underpins future approach to that pathways network, and but it doesn't necessarily lock everything in terms of absolute timing and delivery. There's still a further process to go through in terms of the long-term plan that would then lock in any potential funding associated with this, because this is from 2027 looking forward, and it's a document that we're required to provide again to assist us in that funding conversation with NZTA, but also as part of our overarching asset management approach to looking after the network for the entire transport network for the next 30 to 50 years. So I don't know if Fraser has anything to add.
Yeah, just further to add to that, the plan also helps us integrate with other plans within council, our economic development team, our parks and open space and climate environment team. It also kind of supports our sustainable transport strategy, which is the overarching document of this plan. So yeah, I think the challenges we have is in that funding space, and this enables us to be ready. Next steps for us, provided it gets accepted today, will be to further communicate this plan to our wider audiences. It will enable us to seek NZTA's endorsement of the plan. Okay, that kind of is that next formal step to set us up through the LTP to seek co-funding from NZTA. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. I think without spending too much time talking to the report, just welcome any questions and feedback. At the end of the table, we do have Alan Kerr from Mark Advisory. He helped develop the business case that supports the technical component of it. Mark's our asset management, and Philip is in the comms team who helped develop the comms engagement which we had with the community. So through you, Madam Chair, just open the floor for questions.
Yeah, great. Noting the two attachments that we have as appendices, both the brochure and then the kind of long form network plan. Any questions on either of those or the report? Councillor Spies.
Thank you. Just wondering, on the plan, there's a couple of works you're doing, Percival Donovan Road. Just wondering, have you been around on Donovan Road from 2:30 to 10 or 3:15? And just wondering how that's going to work with, you have been down there, so you know the amount of traffic that's down there, and we've also got along Donovan Road, we've got a kindy on one side and the pension houses on the other, and it's kind of very delicate.
Thanks, I think that can be noted. Yeah, and if there's any brief response you want to provide, Fraser?
Yeah, that's a great example of the challenges we face in the delivery of this plan. That site in particular, there's good opportunity here for us to help provide that walking and cycling connection and component where people can get to and from school safely. That our challenge will be looking at the wider transport and the parking component of it to make sure that the two work together. So that's a great example.
Yeah, I just feel that, many parents take their children to school because it is not safe to cycle. with all the vehicles that are parked on the side of the road and crossing over is not, it's really not a safe place to be.
Exactly, and this plan here will help to provide a facility that will be safer for them to be able to walk and cycle. That's our kind of objective and initiative, is to get more people walking and cycling, to take pressure off people parking or getting close as they can to the school.
So have you spoken to Kenakena School principal or anything about?
We've spoken to a number of the principals and schools, and we've engaged with them in that process of our key stakeholder workshops. I think when we get into the detail of when we start designing these facilities, we'll start to really engage with the directly affected parties of what that facility might look like, and hear from them what challenges they face when they are taking kids to school.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's just with Te Aotearoa Park there and all the activities going on there as well. It's quite a dynamic kind of space.
Thanks, Councillor Spies. Good point. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. And look, I heard very good things about how easy it is to get around, and the fact that, coming from Wellington, it's nice and flat here. It's great to see that we are developing the networks as we go. My question relates to number 10 on page 39 of the agenda. It just talks to the former strategic network plan 2015 being named Stride and Ride was a 10-year program of council work endorsed by council. I was just curious to know how we went against the delivery on that plan. I just didn't see that here as such, because I appreciate there's a lot of taking the opportunities when they're there, and gearing up for that as well. But I was just curious to know how we went in relation to that.
So part of the plan, we reviewed the former strategic network plan. We landed about 90% delivered on that plan.
Awesome.
So some of that 10% we carried forward into this LTP for funding to complete, and then the outstanding items we've carried forward into this plan.
Lovely. No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Good question. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, this is great. I just wondered a couple of things. One is in terms of the EDKB's involvement in this, given that this is significant for tourism, sustainable transport, health and well-being, etc., etc. So that's the first one. Are you getting any? Is there a relationship there?
Yes. So ED's been part of that, I guess, engagement with the development of this plan. They're currently working on a tourism trails plan. Okay, so that this plan will help, I guess, inform and build on the promotion of our network. So, and then the third party in that kind of close circle within the teams is our parks and open space, the recreational component. So the three of us are working quite closely together.
Okay. And I got a migraine reading it because it's like tiny little print, even with the best glasses. Couldn't read some of it. But so that takes me to the point about communicating the summary brochure. So the front page of this looks really inviting and engaging, and I could see the public going, wow, that's great. There's the whānau on the bikes looking great. But so the summary, the summary brochure, is it more of that, or is it just like 100,000 lines of text? Not to put it on you, but just to say, in terms of making that, we engage with it because we have to, but the public, I don't think, would necessarily engage because it looks difficult to engage with.
I think there will be some of the public who will be very interested, and others will just be high level. So we'll be doing a range of comms to support it. The brochure will be an A3, so you're probably looking at an A4.
Yeah.
And we did try and cram a lot of copy, and I acknowledge that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other one for me was on page 143, I think it was. Where'd it go? Yeah, where it said do minimum, and the do minimum sounds like an instruction. Do minimum. It's a bit like we heard the Commerce Commission telling us about water services delivery, and the word minimum got mentioned 300 times in the conversation, which I found disturbing. So in this situation, Yeah, like I say, that kind of sounds like an instruction to do the minimum, but I'm sure that's not the intent. And so there's a question mark. I understand.
I'll just pass it over to Alan, whose technical component can answer that.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for the question. So it's a little bit of jargon, to be honest, the de minimum. Essentially, it's the receiving environment. So it's the situation if we didn't deliver the network plan. So it's everything, the counterfactual basically, it's what we evaluate things against. So when we do our economic analysis, for example, we compare the do minimum against the do something being the delivered plan, and you can see then the relative benefits and costs associated with that. So that's all that's referring to.
So it just might be semantics, but I'm just how a reaction to that might be. Yeah.
Yeah, no, noted, thank you.
Cool. But it's very thorough. Yeah.
Agreed, yeah. Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So I might get a little bit confused here because I'm sort of swapping between pages. But on in the document, it actually shows the projects that are going to be taken, and I haven't got it on my screen, so I've just written this down here. So when you're looking at some of the work that's been done in Timawana Road to the beach, 8, which I can't remember what it is because I haven't got it up, is one section which is going to be completed. I think it's up to Rapraha Street. And then there's another section actually on that Rapraha Street intersection which isn't going to be done for another 8 years or so. And then there's a section towards the beach which is actually going to be done in 27-30. So it seems like a gap in the middle, so it's not actually doing a whole section. And I know I brought this up at the last meeting, and I think you guys were going to look at it, but I'm just wondering what the reasoning is for that there when, you know, to me it makes sense to do it all at a similar time frame. So is there any reason why it's still broken up like that?
Yeah, I agree. We want to try and do it efficiently with grouping the projects together. This forecast here of putting them through the next 3 LTP cycles is just an example of what it could look like. We've tried to just at this point in time group them into a comparative cost over that 10 years and trying to group them with the projects that we know about at this point in time, like speed management plan. So it's not until we go through the LTP review we'll look at it and to know what council's priorities are at the time and NZTA's, and then we can start to narrow it down, group them together, be efficient with how we package and procure these projects, and then we'll put them back to council for approval.
Right.
So this is just looking at, this is what it could look like.
Right.
The priorities will change with time as we progress, but it's through the LTP we'll be coming back for council for approval.
Right, thank you. So, and I know I also asked this question last time. So, so this is the funding from 2027 onwards. And Councillor Halliday asked how much had been done in the previous segment. Sean knows what's coming here. And I think you said that 10% hadn't actually been completed, and one of those sections was Peka Peka Road. And so when you actually look at the document here, it talks about how that was going to be done, and it hasn't been done because of lack of funding, but it's not actually included in this work as well. So is that in part of the suite of work to be done, or has it dropped off?
So it was a bit of a timing thing, right? So when we started the development of this plan a year and a half ago, right, and that was coming up into this LTP. So we put forward projects into this LTP without knowing the outcome of this plan. So the projects we funded, council funded one of the projects in this LTP, Riverbank Road, that's underway at the moment. Yep. The 2 outstanding ones, it's where we pick this up in the next step with the acceptance of this plan. We bring them back into the plan, okay, and we evaluate them against the priorities of the other projects in here, and then we look to the next 27-30 LTP and put them forward.
Yeah, because I suppose to me, unless you actually know about some of these details, you're not likely to bring them up. And to me, it would have been useful to include it in there as something that was initially going to be done, but has not been done because of a lack of funding.
We could, well, Mark has a response.
It's a really good point. The Peka Peka Road is in this LTP. We still would like to do it.
I know.
We're still reaching out and looking for funding, like the resilience funding we received and the additional funding for the low cost, low risk work. If there's an opportunity, we'll still reach out and grab it because it's in this LTP. Any work that we don't get completed in this LTP because of funding restrictions automatically just comes into consideration and prioritisation for the next LTP. So it won't be lost. It's a how do you merge those two together? Maybe in future we could have said, hey, these are the projects we're aiming to put into this LTP, and this is the plan beyond. But it's certainly not lost.
Yeah, and thank you, and I think you gave a similar response last time, but just to me, having a mention in there of it is actually, would have been really useful, because unless I bring it up and it's not included, it may not necessarily be brought forward. Well, that's from an elected member's point of view anyway.
Well, all I can say is documented in the long-term plan.
Yeah.
Anybody can have access to that document. If we don't get funding from NZTA, then we can also look at funding it through council in the last year so that's the next annual plan process. So, and as I said earlier, we do quite well at actually tapping into additional resource from NZTA to match projects that we've got on the book. So, yeah, I would be extremely surprised if it isn't picked up through those three mechanisms, and again, it's in the long-term plan at the moment, so it's visible.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Cooper.
Yes, I thought we were moving away from net zero carbon to gross emissions, but is that not the case?
Different
We're
paper,
still.
or you've.
Oh, sorry.
We're still on the pathway.
Oh, sorry.
Network plan.
Sorry.
All good. Could you pop your mic off, Councillor Cooper? That's all right. Councillor Copeland.
Oh, thank you. Just if you look at page 13. Beg your pardon?
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on, Councillor
Page
Copeland.
139 in the appendix. We have a little in very small print, Otaki Mari Racing Club Development Project. You know where this is going, don't you?
I do.
And there's a little brown roads. There are brown roads around it that say quiet road, recommended by cyclists. Well, they're not quiet roads. They have quarry trucks going both ways. They've got itinerant lifestyle blockers moving their cows along there, and they get out of control. They the small print there refers to 500 houses that are proposed for the race club. So I think a little bit more work. I know, page 135 also has sustainable growth, and that really indicates where the growth should be going. And yet we sort of head out of the growth areas into the food production areas. But my point is that we've got to be very careful how we annotate the roads, and perhaps be a little bit more realistic, especially when the developers are looking at them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Covid. I think that can be noted. Thank you. Not seeing any further comments or questions. So is there someone who would like to move the recommendations on page 38? Jocelyn, would you like to move? Yeah. Cool. Seconded. Councillor Wilson, right of introduction.
I'll pass on that, thank you.
Okay. Any contributions to debate? Nope. Not seeing any. So our recommendations on page 38. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Those are carried. Thank you, Fraser. Thanks, Sean, and thanks for the rest of the team. Oh, cool. Okay, so now we're moving on to 9.5, approval of emissions reduction strategy for public consultation. And Gina and Damien, welcome up to the table. Now, this has also been discussed through workshops and also at Climate and Environment. Oh no, we didn't discuss it at Climate and Environment at this stage because we had to push it directly to SOF, but the team will give some more context to that. Chris.
Yeah, I'm just going to open and then I am going to hand over to Gina and Damien, who have been working on this with others, of course, for quite some time to get it to, I think, the great space that it's in. Just want to note really that obviously this has been, I'll call it a journey to get to this point. You will recall that the last time we talked to you, there was agreement that we wanted to push forward with this emissions reduction strategy. At the moment, we've been using the word sub-strategies, but essentially we have split off the different components that we had been talking previously with you around climate change, and we had decided we wanted to push through with this one. So that is the setting that we're entering into. There is still more opportunity for people, including this table, to provide feedback. So we're not at the end gate by any means. With that context in mind, I will hand over to the team and they can just step you briefly through today.
Thanks, Chris. I think generally we have had quite a lot of discussion on this work, so we're really happy to be getting to this point where we're asking you to approve us to go out and have our public consultation on this strategy. As Chris said, this is part one of our suite of climate change strategies with a focus on emissions reduction. We did have some feedback on the title when we were previously calling it a sub-strategy, so one of the things we're asking you to approve today is that change to that emissions reduction strategy title. You'll see in the paper as well, we have included some changes to some aspects that respond to councillors' interest in having a bit of a call to action for people to be part of this work. And we will also look at doing that in when we get to our digital first presentation of the strategy on our website. So we're happy to have feedback about that specifically as well. As you can see, we're saying we'll do a public consultation between the 19th of this month and the 13th of June. We have pop-ups at Raumati, Otaki, Paraparaumu, Paikokariki, and I'm forgetting our fifth one. Waikanai. Thank you, very important one. Apologies for forgetting that. And we do have a webinar proposed for I think it's the 27th we're looking at. So lots of opportunity for people to engage, and we'll also invite elected members to join us for those sessions too. I think otherwise we'll take the paper as read and happy to take questions. Is there anything you want to add, Damien?
Just the only other thing I'd add would be to note that we've made a big. We heard last time a strong push from councillors around the need for individual action to be clearer in the document. So you'll see that there's much more reference there to individuals, what individuals can do. I'd be really interested in understanding whether we've got the balance right with that. But obviously we're going out for consultation as well, so we'll be seeking public feedback on that as well. Also very keen to hear your thoughts on the designed strategy on a page, how that's looking, and I think that's it. Great.
And just noting that A3 will be a really key part of our engagement, so hence if you've got any feedback on that, let us know.
Great, thank you. Councillor Coe.
Thank you. So I think it was me last time that was calling for the call to action part of the document. And so, yeah, massive improvement in that sense with this version. So thank you very much for the effort you've put into that. I just wonder if I could make a suggestion to enhance it slightly more even in that regard. And that is around the table on page 21, because I think we could actually be even more specific there. and really put in, and you've got that heading, but everyone has a role to play. That needs to be in big letters with stars and asterisks and bright red or something like that, to really emphasise that we can't do this without the community helping us to achieve it. So that would be my feedback. Can we really highlight that, and especially under households and residents, put some points there, like, are you willing to, convert to a, electric vehicle or something? Just really spell out quite clearly the ask that we're making of the community if we're going to achieve this target, rather than just a catch-all kind of statement. I think that would just enhance it to that next level, to make it absolutely certain. And maybe, I'm not sure if you're going to put questions in the consultation document, but maybe some questions around that, to what extent are you prepared to change the way you do things along the lines of, driving a different type of vehicle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would be good to be explicit about that and get some feedback from the community about, just to judge the level of buy-in to making those changes. Because, if we don't have the buy-in, how are we going to make it happen? Or what would it take? You could ask that question. What would it take for you to make those changes? Something along those lines. But
That's great feedback. Yeah. We've noted that down and we'll ensure we incorporate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
I just wonder if that we're consulting with the community about a lot of stuff at the moment. There's there's an enormous amount of consultation. I'm not a big fan of being directive, because I don't think Mrs. Jones with her 4 kids is going to go, shit, I must update the SUV, or I must get a Tesla. So there are a lot of financial constraints for individual people. I think council's has an example. So I think council's reduced its emissions by 88% is the number that rings a bell from the mayor's column. So we're doing it. So there's there are some exemplars, and I think maybe what we can do is suggest to people, here's some of the options that are available, rather than making things prescriptive. But a concern for me, I guess, is just at what level do you start to over consult?
I might just add some great feedback there. We might touch base offline to make sure we get that balance right. And I think just in terms of consultation, I will add Fish and Kapiti. The fantastic feedback we'd have through that process. These are topics that people are interested in, and through previous surveys, we've had high degrees of interest. So we are really taking the approach at the moment that we're available. If people have feedback, they can get in touch with us. There is no wrong door. So we're trying to test as we go. So we'll be available. If people want to give us feedback, we'll take it. If we've got it right, and we'll just push forward to come to you. We'll touch base with you both offline to make sure we get that balance right. And thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
I was just wondering, I think I've voiced this previously, I'm not a fan of net zero. And it seems I'm a fan of reducing our gross emissions as much as possible and being laser focused on gross emissions to get them as low as possible. But it seems sequestration is still a core plank of the strategy. But reading the document, it's being left up to almost organic sequestration by the community and I beg your pardon? Did you? Okay, my apologies. Sequestration. So what work has been, if sequestration is a core plank of the strategy, which clearly is, what work has been done to understand what sequestration is required and whether that organic uplift is going to have any impact towards the 2040 or towards the net zero? And if it is an organic uplift, how is that actually being measured, or how can it be measured? Because if it can't, then is that not an issue? So just some comment around net zero versus gross and sequestration.
Yeah, so we have
Thank
been
you.
quite clear, I hope, in the document to say that this is an area that needs more work, and there's a line in the strategy that says we're committed to taking more analysis to understand exactly how we do it. But yeah, you do raise a good point that it's from where we are now to where we want to be. There is a gap in how we will do that. But I would say that that's kind of what strategies are there to do, is to give that long-term sense of direction, and then it's going to be through our action plans that sit beneath that we then figure out the detail. And the other point I'd make is, we have emphasised through this document and through the whole process that we're ultimately committed to an aspirational target. So we don't know exactly how we'll get there. That's why it's aspirational, and we will be figuring that out as we go through.
I might add to that, and just to say, because I think that's really relevant points, that it is aspirational. In all reality, this is a community strategy, and I think the conversation today about everyone needs to get involved is that council itself can only commit and do certain things. We can't do this by ourselves, and so this is going to be a living conversation. I'm going to imagine that we keep checking in and coming back to. One of the biggest levers and players in this conversation are our good friends from Greater Wellington and Metlink and our public service and other things that help us to do some of the shifts and things even in the transport space. So I think we've tried to look at where are the big levers we can pull. There are other things that we can look at as a package of things. There's no silver bullet. We're not going to get there through one action or one thing by itself, but every little action you take every day helps. And I think we do have Monique and Jamie in the room with us today, and I think of the work that they do in the community on the ground every day is really in that space. And so this strategy is saying, hey guys, here's where we think we're heading, and underneath that, to Damien's point, is the action plan. It's the day-to-day actions. It's us all working together that will step us forward. So we don't have a magic model. I'm going to be honest, there is no magic model that says if you do A plus B plus C, we get there. This is going to be a living conversation, and that can feel really uncomfortable, but that is the space that I guess emissions are in, and so we will keep engaged in talking to you. You will hear from all of us in the room as we work across this space, trying to make sure that we are bringing this to life and having the conversations we need. So I know that probably doesn't absolutely answer the question you have, but I think in all reality, the honest answer is it's going to take more action, it's going to take more analysis, it's going to take more live on the ground working with people to get where we believe the community has said to us they want to head.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it. I struggle with the word aspirational. I don't know what the right word would be, and there will be, I don't know, there might not be a right word for it. I struggle with the word aspirational when it's, I aspire to fly to the moon. I can do lots of things towards making that happen, so I'm not sure of the right word. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Halliday? Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair. I hear what you're saying, Coops. It is a journey, and like I've got a couple of things I want to talk to here, but you just correct me if I'm on track with regards to my thinking in this, because previously we made a decision. I don't know if it was this triennium or last triennium, but we had the option to purchase carbon credits, and we said no to that because for us that was like cheating. In other words, spending ratepayers' money on a hideous expense more than likely. So we've sort of gone down that pathway of looking, okay, what can we do? What can we do with regards to organically hitting that target over a longer period of time. So I see one of the things I've struggled a little bit with this paper is the fact that we talk it's a strategy, but it seems more like an approach. But it sort of like seems like strategy, but more like approach. But it's sort of almost a little bit of a change in how we are addressing this particular thing. Which I'm not saying is a good or bad thing. I think it's because for me, and I'm certainly seeing this in the waste minimisation space, we've done our internal stuff. And we've done a very good job on our internal stuff. And always the challenge is going to be how do we broach this conversation with the general community? And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to individuals to make their own decisions about how they want to engage in this space or what they want to do. So am I sort of picking that what we're doing here is starting to engage with the community in that space and start pushing them, or should we start talking, sort of getting them thinking about what they can personally do to make a difference in this space?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to make a comment, and I will hand to the team because I can see them shifting in their seat. I think what I'm going to say is the set of strategies that we've pushed forward with you this triennium, actually, economic development existed, but we've been refreshing it. Housing exists. We've introduced this now, emissions reduction, but it was in the climate space, the environment and health. I think the aim of those strategies is all about the community. So this is challenges in the community and thinking about how we work together on those challenges or issues. Some of the action is from council, some of the action is from others. And I think with this strategy, what feels really awkward, this is just my view, is it's not in our control. So yes, we want to do something. The extent to which we can do it, we can do our bit, but it has to be a priority for everybody else. And I think Councillor Wilson had just acknowledged that in a recessionary climate, when it's hard for people just in their day-to-day, some of the things that we might be saying, hey, can you do these things, might feel a bit tough. But what I would say is we've tried to put into the strategy every little thing counts. So waste minimisation, if you're doing that, that doesn't cost to do. So there's things that you can think about every day. I'm going to say our business is already doing this. So I will give you some examples. I won't use names, but I'll say some of our businesses who are in food and beverage, they've already got sustainable processes in place because it's cheaper for business. They've put solar panels up because it's cheaper than electricity. They're doing really sustainable practices because it makes sense to do so. And so I think every little thing you do, I think the strategy talks about this is about making your life better, making houses warmer, making it easier to do business. All those things come together. So it's how does that help us get to an aspirational target rather than council is going to do these things to achieve something. And I know that feels a bit weird. We do have council specific action plans and strategies that are going to help us stay on track. But this is really starting to push out. So we are engaging our community and saying, so what will you bring in business? And actually, I did mention Metlink and Greater Wellington deliberately because we all need to come together if we want to make good change for our community. And when we get into our master planning, and this will be through to the next triennium, we're going to start talking about good growth and having a blueprint that brings us all together to go, this is what it means for our district. So all of this is starting to head towards that. So out of context, one strategy feels a bit weird, but there is method to this madness, and that is what we're trying to do. So we don't have a model that says here it is, because it's not possible in the space, but it does fit in our good growth suite of the things we think are important to be packaged together so that we're doing the right things. So that's how we see it fitting together.
Okay, yep, that's great. So you're taking all that on board, and I do agree with the approach because it is that whole paradigm shift, taking on board what Nigel was saying. You know, I'm not in a position to get my electric car yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I can recycle at home. I can do those sorts of things. We upcycled when we did our house, say, for argument's sake, and all that sort of thing. So I guess that's part of the process. But also taking on board what Councillor Cooper was saying, Yeah, we and I think I saw it something in the report, but so we're establishing baselines with regards to things like, I'm sorry, I'm a bit like sequestration. So yeah, you know what I'm saying. So have we got baselines, or are we creating baselines in that space so the work that we do is something to measure against? As such in these different areas. I know that there's a measurability happening in, say, the waste minimalisation space to give those baselines as we move forward as well. But in those areas, are those baselines being put in place, or are they in place at the moment?
Well, we have all the detail on our district submissions through the analysis that I think the carbon footprinting that Greater Wellington does. So that's effectively setting, we know what our emissions are today.
Yeah. And
we know where we need to be in 15 years' time. So yes, we know where we're starting from.
Yep, no, I get that. But from the the growing tree stuff.
Yeah. And equally, we also have that data.
Yeah, and they'll have some baseline data in that specific space there as well. And that's okay, cool, lovely. All right, thank you.
Councillor Pravanov.
Yes, so thank you. And thank you for the team for the work that has been done in the space. This is something that is really important, and, you know, council does a lot in this space already. One of the things, you know, and it's been really interesting, some of the comments made, and I'm probably going to pick up on what Chris has said in terms of bringing our community along with us. And I suppose even before you made your comments, to me, the actual document is quite corporate in terms of the wording that is used. For example, on page 69, the word partnerships is used. And to me, if we, you know, when an individual reads this, it's about making it more personalised for them. And so they can, you know, think, well, yes, I can do some of this stuff. And so the words like partnership, and there's probably other words in there, it's about working together, which is exactly the same thing, but it actually just makes people think that it's a wording thing, and it's about making the whole document more personalised so that they can see particularly where they fit in there. And so when, you know, example that Martin's just made about planting trees, there are many community groups out there that are doing it, and it's about, you know, some people will know this, some people are involved and some people don't, but it's about how individuals can do that by becoming part of a group or actually doing plantings in their own backyard. And so it's actually about somehow sowing a seed in people's minds that KCDC is doing a lot, and often they will be doing the lead, but they can do their little bit as well. And I suppose there are some people who are already doing stuff, and there are other people who possibly would like to but don't know how. And this is about, you know, this document here is about, or this strategy is about getting those people on board, as well as those people who aren't really engaged. And so to me it's about, and I know it's very late in the piece here, but it's about tweaking it so that actually it brings in our community as well.
Yeah, I think I might make a comment that Gina, when she opened, talked about the fact that our strategies are going online, they're digital. Unfortunately, you have paper with words in it. And I think when you see what's coming through behind the scenes in terms of the design, we're actually going to have how to get involved. You said that to us before. These are the groups that you can get involved with. Click here to go to their page. So that's behind this. To get to that point, though, to be able to talk to somebody about the substance, we need something we can say, yep, this is it, and that's what this document is. So this is not the main tool that we'd be saying we're going to engage everyone. So we've been listening very hard. We are very much focused on the online presence and how we can engage people with the substance. And I think that the first example we have is actually when I think of our Business Kapiti website and how we've brought the economic development strategy to life in a really different way. There's the paper of what it is, and then there's the case studies and examples and all of that. You will get the same thing with this. Today, though, We don't have that. Here's a substance, or I'll call it the guts of what we're getting up to, that we're saying to you guys, does that feel about right? It leverages off all the discussions we've had with you to date, using the frameworks that we've worked through, and then once you go, yep, cool, behind the scenes, we'll come back to you with all that goodness of how do we bring it to life. And I'm going to use those words. It is bringing it to life. Paper's never the way to do that. So I'm going to say absolutely take those points. And even the point about the word partnership and this, I saw the team noting that down. And when we come back, we'll make sure that we've got that lens and where that lands so that it is really engaging and it is a signal to get involved.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I think, like, some people will read this, from a corporate perspective and maybe turn off, whereas you want people to become engaged. And as I think as Gina said earlier on, this is a community strategy and it's about ensuring that people can get engaged with it. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kirby.
I really like the A3. It's good. I would add to it making accessible how I can implement this to an everyday individual. And so that would be some of the questions, and it's probably aligns with what Councillor Coe was saying earlier. We've got a range of people in our community, some with means, some without, in terms of financial ability to make big changes. The idea of putting solar on my house and buying an EV is probably outside of my range of ability at the moment, but there are other things you can do, like actually taking a proactive stance around what foods you buy due to the waste that they're packaged in. The things that you can do, so making it accessible in ways that it's no cost to make a change. And one small change might be this. So what would that look like? And that's probably, if I'm consulting out, would be asking people, what is accessible to you to be able to make these changes, and how could council help facilitate? Are there mechanisms that we have available that we could do?
So we might come back to you as well to make sure that the questions that we go out with this can pick up on those kinds of points. That's very valuable.
Yeah, and realising that we've got a range of ages, and their understanding of this is at different places as well. If you look at our retired populations, there's lots of them that are fully over this, then others that are renting, that are struggling to make ends meet, and the idea of even talking about emissions and what that could look like is a step too far. And so how do we make that accessible for our broader community, not just those that are highly motivated or say, yeah, that's a good idea, because everyone can tick a box and say it's a good idea to reduce our emissions, but actually when it comes down to what does that mean for me today. I loved, the Electra Business Breakfast yesterday. Was one of the great things about the speaker there was she just challenged the thing around takeaway coffee cups. That takeaway coffee cup, even though it says compostable whatever on it, that's going to be 1,000 years in a landfill plus. So why are we even buying it in the first place? Because it's not going to be composted. Someone's going to put it in a bin and it's going to go in the landfill. That's a small thing that you can change straight away, and it's not going to make any difference to your life other than I have to carry this into the coffee shop and ask them to fill it. I guess that's, for me, it's about the accessibility of this strategy that makes it, people can go, yeah, I can do something about that. I can buy into that in a practical way. So that's just my couple of comments. I really like the A3 though, I think it's great.
I might just jump in now with a couple of questions, if that's okay, Councillor Cofer,
Yes,
and then come
indeed.
back to you
Go,
because
go.
they're along a similar line to the comments of Deputy Mayor Kirby. I think it's really useful that we're talking a lot about how we can work together with our community to implement this, but I think it's also really crucial for us to acknowledge the systems change that's required to enable that collaboration to happen effectively, and that council, holding a leadership role ultimately in our community, and people see that and they elect us to be that. It's important that we don't through doing that and through quite clearly providing opportunities for individuals to influence and impact our emissions and lowering them, that we don't kind of undersell and under-acknowledge the role that council has to truly advocate and bring to life the changes in systems that are required, from ones that are extractive, ones that prioritise efficiency, to ones that are instead kind of recognise the interconnectedness of us as people and with the land. So I think that's crucial to get right. And the other question that I had was around, I think the pathways are really useful in the ways that they're described and those key shifts and key levers, but I'm wondering whether there'll be another layer of information that's potentially added, whether it's now or kind of in the future as the strategy, as you say, as a living document, and will evolve over time, to kind of start planning for now the timeframes for some of this work and also the indicative costs for it and how that's likely to be spread, because I don't want us to get into a situation where we've had really great ideas be put on paper about what the key council levers are, the shifts that need to happen, but we haven't quantified how long those things are going to take to be embedded, and also how much needs to be invested now to be able to reap the benefits of them in 10, 15 years' time. So yeah, I don't want us to get to, 2035 and we're like, we had these shifts on paper, but oh my goodness, we haven't planned for them.
I think maybe I can say, and I'll say appropriately, we're in phase A of perhaps a 42 phase process. I'm not sure how long. Phase A is going directionally. We've set an aspirational position. We know what levers we're going to pull to try and shift stuff. And we're sharing that with everybody and saying, get amongst it. Once that's landed, we then come down to the next level and go, cool. So what are the things we need to do?
Cool.
That's separate to the strategy itself. So this strategy is not going to include all of that. It will have things that come after it. So there's things that come after it. And if I used health as an example, council is not setting out a plan for health. We are working with the most significant stakeholders in health for services who commission and do a bunch of other things to get them to come together to put a plan together. And we will work with them. So your point of leadership, absolutely, in the middle of helping and doing things, but it may not be our role to say these are the things that we're going to do if they're not things that are council actions. Yep. And so it's that next bit though. What we can do is when we bring the strategy back, when we finalise it, is signal that we think these are the next things that need to happen, who's involved and what that looks like.
That would be
so
really useful.
So we can definitely do that.
To understand the kind of phasing of the next step, because I agree with Martin, like this is really useful and it feels a lot like kind of an approach, but a more detailed approach, and I love the principles, I think they're awesome. And then being able to have some oversight over the next stage being, somewhat of an implementation plan, who would work on that collectively, how that shapes up and when, and just some more like tangible as to what's next. But it sounds like that is
absolutely,
planned.
and I think I can say now that will come when we bring,
Cool.
I'll call it the final products back to you, along with the points I think we've heard today about how we bring this to life. So I've had the benefit of actually seeing some of the great work that's happening around our websites and how this would be presented, which you have not yet seen, but hits to the points that you have made about how do you make it easy, how can you engage with it. What I will say is there are a small cohort of people who will appreciate this document itself, with the detail and access to other things that we've looked at. We will have that available for those people as well. And it's useful to be able to table our aspirations in a way that some of the other parties that we operationally work with, I will say it that way, we can share with them. So it's twofold, but we pick up the points about making sure community strategy, we're engaging, it's accessible, we have a step for the way forward.
Cool. All right, questions from two last members of the committee. Councillor Cofitt.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think the the A3 is brilliant. I think what we've got to ask ourselves is what does it all mean to the ratepayer, our community? And okay, carbon credits was just touched on. Well, crikey, imagine increasing the rates, 5% to pay for carbon credits. The ratepayers wouldn't appreciate that. But we have some good news stories. We send our land waste out of the district to Martin.
Sorry, is this a question, Councillor Cofford?
No, it's just a comment. I'll make it short. Yeah,
Okay.
we send our land waste to Martin via electric trucks, which is good. That was an initiative which the ratepayers will really appreciate. We have very little transport at Old Taki. We have no train service really, and the bus service is incredibly poor. So we have to use, compromise with our fossil fuels, and I'll just have to keep flying the aeroplane down now and again to some meetings in the meantime until we get these services. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cofford. Bede.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So, that A3 on page 73 of the agenda. So I just got 3 questions. My first one, under 2025, where we are now, we've got the colour-coded pie graph, which is quite useful, and it feeds into the pathways, which are colour-coded as well. So that's really kind of useful for kind of understanding it. I notice industrial processes don't have a pathway forward. And as I was sitting here, I was just thinking, well, we've got an ED strategy, and if that ED strategy is successful, then industry in Kapiti will grow. If we are forecasting growth in industry, should we not have a pathway so that the growth of that industry isn't destroying this plan, so the plans work together?
That is a fantastic point to table, and absolutely. I'm going to just put a shout out that we have in the Economic Development Strategy a sustainable business network and focus engaging with business, and there is good connection between these. Because Monique and Jamie are in the room with us today, they work in with that part of the team in my group in economic development to make sure that we've got coordinated discussions, that we are thinking about that. I will offer up another thing, which is doing an analysis and putting this on today is where we're at now. It would only take a small shift in our business community for a new sector or a new player to come in to potentially significantly support this to be hit like that, or alternatively, as you say, to make it harder. So I think this is part of my point about the ongoing live discussion. Unfortunately, it's not static. It doesn't stay where it lays. It shifts. And I'm not going to lie, Darren Edwards and I went to Ahui last week just around regional infrastructure and growth, and everybody's talking about renewable energy. Everyone's talking about opportunity and innovation. Those things will conceivably support some of this work. They're not on the table at the moment because they don't exist, but they're real opportunities. And so I think that is all part of the next lot of conversation that I guess we get into as we think about the how piece. So are really good points though. We don't have a plan for everything yet, but I think that's part of the exciting next step.
Sure, cool, thank you. Second one, number 4, sequestration. It's very focused on forestry, but should we not also be making wetlands as a key part of that as well?
Cool. Do you want to respond?
Yeah, we do actually reference wetlands as a sequestration opportunity in the main document.
It'd be a big one, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, again, something that we can dive into as we move into the action plans. And just responding to your very good point about, which I agree with, around what happens if industrial processes suddenly kick off. What I would say there is that's the reasons for the principles and why we've structured the strategy in the way we have and have incorporated the principles, because they're there to help guide decisions over time. This is going to be a dynamic process. things will change. And the principles are designed to help you make informed decisions, the council to make informed decisions. So, for example, one of the key principles is to ensure gross emission reductions. So an opportunity comes along, that's one of the principles that council would need to lay against any decision around a new industrial plant. Is this going to, what's this going to do with our emissions? So, yeah.
Yeah, and a good signal to business coming in here that these are the things that matter to us and the standards we expect, right? Yeah, so good stuff. I think it'd be useful to have wetlands clearly stated in that pathway, and I think there's sectors of the community that would love to see it too, just to comment. The other question is just below that, under the principles, take systems approach. What does that mean, to take a systems approach?
That's spelt out. I haven't got the words in front of me, but it's basically responding to the fact that climate is a wicked problem, right? It's complex, it's dynamic, it impacts on pretty much every part of the economy and pretty much every part of the community. So when you're developing solutions, you've got opportunities not just to address problems that cut across different sectors, but also seize opportunities that cut across different sectors. So health probably is the classic example where you've got an opportunity with climate action to actually improve health outcomes as well. So you're taking a systems approach, thinking holistically and designing your solutions for climate change because you know that, oh, there's another thing over here that we could actually improve or a risk that we could mitigate over there because we've thought of it as a system.
Can I just ask, Bede, are you signaling that it's not clear what that means in this A3 and we could clarify it in a more simplistic way?
Possibly. I just saw that and I thought, I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
So I was just curious.
Yeah. We'll take that away too, because I think you've given us two things that we'll take away and see how we build that in.
Okay.
That's really useful.
In the thinking around that, then, what I would like to add into that is that, yes, obviously the systems approach is very important and the development of the systems is important. I'm just very strong on the view that the systems need to be designed for the people, not the people designed for the system. So I guess I would just kind of throw that in there as well. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Really helpful, thank you.
For the people and the planet, I would add. Systems need to be designed for, I guess we're just an extension of the planet.
System needs to be designed in such a way that people can access it and use it.
Yeah.
And then that will benefit the planet. Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson, I saw your mic on for a second, but it's gone. Did you want to say something?
I'd just love to see inside the mind of the person that did the graph on page 73. That is absolutely spectacular, the amount of information that's in there. I'd like to socialise that document. Yeah. So, has this been moved?
Not yet. I'm happy to move. Seconded? Okay, cool. Great. No, the only thing, just by way of a rite of introduction, I just wanted to thank Damien, Gina, Jamie, Monique, and the rest of the team for your work on this, and also for the workshops that we've been able to have to be free and frank in the way we've discussed and posed and responded to questions. I feel like that's been really useful. I'm excited for this to be out in the community and to hear their response to it, and I really support the idea around asking some questions about what they perceive to be the barriers for them to actively contribute to this. And it's kind of like an extension of the survey and the pulse check that went out a couple of years ago, which we had some really great feedback on. I'm also really keen to see the strategy not just as a document, but instead kind of the corners of the puzzle, and then we're filling in the rest of it. So providing a bit of a map, but this is only the start. And I also just wanted to acknowledge the collaborative efforts that have brought this work to this current stage, including the climate think tank that met several times and provided some really useful kind of specific points actually, and some of those shifts were identified by members of the think tank, which have now found their way into the document that we see in front of us today. And also Mana Whenua and affirming that, keen to continue that conversation specifically to this strategy. And I also want to just thank councillors for signalling our commitment to going hard and fast on this work. And I know that for some of us, it's been a bit of a journey of coming to obviously accept that this council's declared a climate emergency. That was something that all of you just entered into. And this is one way of kind of actualising the fact that we've recognised climate change as a crisis that exists here and now. I think by accepting these recommendations, we not only acknowledge the challenges ahead, but we also embrace the opportunities to innovate, collaborate and lead. And so, yes, we want to provide opportunities for our community to be involved. We also have to, assume our role within that picture, which is one of leadership, both in terms of our own emissions as an organisation, but also pulling all of the levers and advocating as loud as we possibly can to influence other parts of the system as well. Councillor Pravanov?
Yes, so thank you. So I wanted to endorse the comments that you've made and to thank the team for where we've got to today. And I suppose another comment that I wanted to make as well is when, Peter's talking about a systems approach and, particularly when he talks about wetlands, for example, this actually, that demonstrates really how everything's interconnected, because obviously wetlands will come into our environment strategy as well somewhere along the line. So there's all these connections, and without those connections, these processes don't work or these strategies don't work. So into the actual detail, the recommendations, so there's been a lot of conversation and there's actually been some, some suggested changes, and I'm just wondering whether the recommendations, particularly A, need to be slightly amended to include some adjustments.
I wonder if even we could note that final editorial changes could be made in consultation with the two of us.
Yes.
Councillor Pravanov?
Yes.
Before it's released? Because we're hoping to... Oh, no, that only gives us 4 days before.
If I just make a comment that this is draft and we're going out to consult and we're going to get feedback, that we have noted the points that everyone has made, and that we will be doing our very best over the next 2 days or something to get ready to go. If you want to take a different approach, we're happy to do so, but that would mean that we change our timeframes and it will shut the whole thing. So happy to take direction, but I'll just make that point.
Are you happy that we make those changes once the consultation concludes and we come back?
Yeah, I suppose the question is whether or not, some of the wording in the document is actually going to not engage people as much as it would do if there were some slight changes made to it.
But if we can just check with the team, some of those minor wording changes, those can be made before it goes out, right?
Yeah. So we've noted down the feedback today, the things that can be fit into the document. So the point about partnership, working together, easy to do.
So making it more...
Yeah, absolutely. We'll run a lens of that across it, take that as given. I imagine, though, we will get feedback from our community that will help us get to a final point, and that definitely happened with the economic development strategy. So sometimes things that we like, we get feedback on, so we'll be giving that back to you. But essentially, I think we are still focused on the substantive components and levers and principles that we're setting out to get feedback on. You've added some detail in around the actual questions that would be in our Have Your Say, which we'll definitely take on board, and we've said that we will connect with a couple of people on because there was interest in making sure that we might add a couple of questions in. That's easily doable within that time frame. Anything further than that, we would need to come back and we would have to go, we'd have to push out.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm happy to take your lead on this, Sophie.
Okay, happy to leave the recommendations as is, and just noting that those changes will be made. But I don't think we need to add anything into the recommendations. Deputy Mayor Kirby.
I'll leave my comment. I was just saying one way you could solve the problem is approve the draft strategy, just approve the proposed name change and approve the public consultation on the draft strategy.
I feel, as the mover of these recommendations, I'm really happy to approve the draft strategy because it sends that signal that we support the content of the
no problem.
The document. Thank you. Great, no further contributions. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Great, thanks Jamie and thanks Gina. So that takes us to item 10, confirmation of minutes on page 75. Is there someone who would like to
Happy to move.
move those? Yep, Councillor Wilson, noting that they were great. Seconded, I will second. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. And closing karakia. Kia tau ngā manaakitanga ki runga i a tātou katoa, kia hua ai te makihikihi e ki ana, kia toi te kupu, kia toi te reo, kia toi te wairua, kia tau te mauri, ki roto i a mātou mahi katoa i tēnei rā. Haumi e hui e, tae ki. Great, thank you everybody. I think lunch is ready.
We have to dash.